Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Nick Hilaire Show. How did you get into garbage to begin with? I'd love to hear that story.
Well, like I mentioned, I am from Malaysia, and I still have a adventure tourism company in Malaysia, and we do whitewater rafting and caving and outdoor programs there. We've been in this beautiful area in rural Malaysia for over 20 years. And as the company became more and more successful, I realized that I had inadvertently caused a garbage issue. And that's why I know very clearly that in rural areas in Malaysia, I mean, the cities are fantastic. The cities have these, very modern waste infrastructure, right? Fantastic, inverted commas, right? So it goes to these, big line landfills and all of that. But in the village, once you get out of the cities, uh, you know, people literally just throw rubbish in the rivers. I've been kayaking, and a plastic bag of waste has flown over my head, and like, oh, thanks, thanks for not
Yeah.
hitting me. And so basically, kind of looking at that whole garbage issue, and then as a company, we had enough resources to send that waste to the landfill. But I started investigating more and more about this, right? So, like, is landfill great? You can send it to the landfill. Yay, my responsibility is over. And then I started looking at it. Well, actually, no. Actually, that problems are just kind of starting. It's really the whole way waste is being managed. And my partner is an engineer, and she recently retired. She had recently retired, and so I asked her to look at this problem. And what she came up with was a way of a small scale waste incinerator that doesn't use any fuel, that doesn't use any fossil fuel. And because it doesn't use any fossil fuel, and because the process is called low temperature plasma assisted combustion, what a mouthful, it actually produces 50% less CO2 than a conventional incinerator. So it's a way of disposing of waste. It's a way of taking that waste disposal capabilities and putting it in the hands of people who produce waste, instead of putting them in this long chain of which ends up in landfills, right? So it's deliberately designed small so that people who produce waste can dispose of their waste at their site. And we can dispose of waste through this process. It produces 50% less CO2 than a conventional incinerator, and 25% of the greenhouse gas equivalent of landfills. So it's actually better for the environment than landfills.
Interesting. And yeah, I guess I should have asked this earlier when we were talking about garbage, but presumably for most of human history, that's what we did with garbage, right? We just burned it.
Yeah, burned it or buried it, right?
Burned it, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, or left it lying around. So when it was managed, for the last 150 years, ever since landfills and garbage dumps and burning garbage has been around, that hasn't changed. But so what our plasma assisted combustion does, it basically is a way of burning that is cleaner and more efficient. It's hotter and cleaner, right? And this plasma-assisted combustion has been looked at by Princeton University, and different labs have looked at this, mainly in the field of combustion engines. But what we have is a patent that's the first application of this plasma-assisted combustion in the field of waste management. And so we produce less CO2, and it allows for a decentralized waste management system, where instead of having hundreds of garbage trucks, creating lots of emissions as well as they collect waste, you can have a decentralized waste management system where, it's a distributed way of managing waste instead of a highly centralized way.
Right, because like you mentioned earlier, part of the problem with our system is that we're transporting this stuff all around, which has its own sort of carbon footprint.
Exactly. And if you think about it, garbage trucks are the most fuel inefficient vehicles on the road, right? They're huge, they're big, they keep starting and stopping. They get 5 miles per gallon, right? It's the worst fuel efficiency of any vehicle on the road by far.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so what got you interested was you're in Malaysia doing your tours and almost getting hit by garbage on the kayak. How much like you just noticed it accumulating? Like you'd notice plastic in the rivers and stuff like that. How long was this process for you of kind of seeing what was happening with your business?
Well, as we develop our tourism industry in this area, there were the area started getting more populated, right? There's more employment, there are more visitors coming, and I literally one day, maybe like 15 years in, I was cycling one day and I was like, I turned a corner in the jungle and saw this pit full of garbage. And I was like, wait a minute. And it was all plastic bottles. It was all stuff from the tourists, right? It wasn't from the locals living there. It was all trash from tourists.
Yeah,
And I realized that's when it really hit me. It's like, wow, I can't blame anyone else. It's my industry that has created this.
that's doing that.
Um,
Okay.
and because of that, I started looking at this way of how do we dispose of garbage, how can we actually look at a more efficient way, and then just became fascinated by this by the whole topic.
Yeah, absolutely.